Good morning, you're watching Daybreak live on A News and I'm here to take you through the day's top stories. So let's take a look at the headlines. Ceasefire under pressure after Iran threatens to retaliate to US seizure of ship. Mass shooting in the US leaves 8 children dead and others wounded. And Bulgaria's former president on course to win its country's elections. First this morning, a US naval operation has blocked Iranian-linked vessel is adding to regional tensions in the Middle East. American officials say the ship ignored repeated warnings before being stopped by force. With ceasefire talks uncertain, concerns are growing over energy supplies and stability in the Gulf.
US military has taken control of an Iranian-flagged cargo ship after stopping it at sea. In a social media post, President Donald Trump said US forces disabled the vessel by blowing a hole in its engine room and now have full custody of the ship. The US Central Command later confirmed the operation and released video of the encounter. It said a US Navy destroyer, USS Spruance, intercepted the vessel, identified as the MV Tauska, in the North Arabian Sea. According to CENTCOM, the ship's crew failed to respond to repeated warnings over a 6-hour period. The destroyer then fired several rounds from its 5-inch deck gun into the vessel's engine room to stop it. US Marines later boarded the ship, which remains in American custody. Tracking data shows the ship had traveled from Port Klang in Malaysia and was heading toward the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas. The interception took place near key shipping lanes that connect to the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important routes for oil transport. The incident comes during a period of heightened tension in the region. The United States has maintained a blockade on Iranian ports, while Iran has at times restricted traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, diplomatic efforts appear to be faltering. The Islamic Republic news agency reports that Iran has rejected taking part in a second round of talks with the United States. The decision follows warnings from Washington that new strikes could be considered if a deal is not reached. President Trump said US representatives are expected to travel to Islamabad for proposed talks, describing the American offer as fair. However, Iran's refusal raises doubts about whether negotiations will move forward.
Now let's take a look at the story shaping the day across the globe, and we head first to the New York Times website and what's taking place, especially in connection with our top story. So US attacks Iranian cargo ship while preparing for new round of talks, and as you just heard in the first report, a number of things have come to light. No more than this particular blockade of Iran's vessel heading to the Strait of Hormuz was blocked by a US naval destroyer. Now the US said that it was sending a delegation to Pakistan on Monday today for another possible round of talks aimed at ending this war with Iran. However, comments on Sunday from the Iranian state media team said there were currently no plans to participate in the next round, and Iran has accused America of violating a fragile ceasefire between the two countries. Now, President Donald Trump has also announced that an Iranian cargo ship tried to get past the blockade near the Strait of Hormuz and has been seized. Now, Iran's military said the ship had been traveling from China and said that we warned that the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will soon respond and retaliate against this armed piracy by the US military. Now, because of that, what we're seeing this morning as well is energy prices are rising again, and because of these tensions in the Middle East between the US and Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. And just now on this, now we turn over to Lebanon, who we know there is currently a ceasefire in place, and a number of displaced people and family are now making their way back to Lebanon south on Sunday during this 10-day ceasefire. However, with the ceasefire, not everybody is happy with it, especially those in Israel, especially in the northern part of Israel, who some have decided to take strike and protest against the Israeli government about that, because they are not happy that the fighting has stopped, has been paused for a period of time. Okay, now let's move over to our next story, and that's on CNN, which is making key headlines. And that is Louisiana gunman killed 8 children, including 7 of his own, police say, in the deadliest mass shooting since 2024. So that was 8 children aged between the ages of 1 to 14 years old have been killed in this shooting. Police have described it as a domestic disturbance. Officers said that the incident began at 5 o'clock in the morning local time, which is on Sunday, which is 1 p.m. Baku time. Now, it was a single gunman shot 10 people before fleeing in a stolen car. Police then chased and killed the suspected shooter. Police have not named the victims, but said some of them were children that were related to the actual shooter and who is now deceased. Speaking earlier on Sunday, the mayor in Louisiana said this is a tragic situation, maybe the worst tragic situation they've ever seen in the Shreveport area. Now, police said there were multiple crime scenes, including 2 homes on the same block and a 3rd residence nearby in a neighboring block as well. But we'll give you more information later on in the program in relation to this key story. Now we move over to our 3rd headline, and that's on Deutsche Welle's website. And that's in relation to what's going on in Europe and Bulgaria. Pro-Russian Radev to win parliamentary vote. So Roman Radev's Progressive Bulgaria party is looking to win Sunday's Bulgarian elections. Now, it's the 8th general election in 5 years. Exit polls put his Progressive Party on 37% more than double the score of the closest runner-up, who is the former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov's GERB. He's currently on 16%. And just a reminder, the election was called after the previous government tried to push through a controversial budget last December, which prompted mass demonstrations. Now, Radev has promised to build a stronger Bulgaria in a strong Europe. He's seen as a very pragmatic, somewhat pro-Russian leader. He's also criticized the EU on sanctions and called for constructive dialogue with the Kremlin. He also opposes Bulgarian military support for Ukraine as well. So that's some of his ideas. He's also fought this election largely on domestic policies, promising to combat corruption and restore stable government after years of weak and easily toppled coalitions. So we'll give you the update. We're still waiting for a clear result, but it does look likely that Roman Radev is going to take the win and become Bulgaria's next president. Okay, now let's move over to our 4th story. That's in relation to Malaysia and what's happening there. Drone footage shows huge Malaysian coastal village on fire. This happened over the weekend. A huge fire on Sunday tore through a floating village in Malaysia, which you can see on your screen now, reducing more than 1,000 homes to ash, affecting over 9,000 residents. Flames raced across the tightly packed settlement there. Strong winds actually pushed the fire across more than 4 hectares of densely packed homes in the village in eastern Malaysia. Now, there were 35 firefighters battling the blaze and used water tankers. Now, it's crucial. It's a coastal village, this particular area, where many indigenous and undocumented people live in wooden stilt houses over the water that you just would have seen just there. They are some of Malaysia's poorest residents, and we're not sure exactly what the cause is, but an investigation into it is underway at the moment, and we'll provide you with more information. But as you can see from how these huts and how the houses are very much densely put together, it's no wonder how easily this fire would have spread throughout this particular neighborhood there. Okay, well, that's your press roundup for now. We're going to take a short break. When I return, I'll discuss the rest of the global stories. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak. Now let's take a look at the global stories for the morning. We turn firstly to Israel, and Israel's defense minister has said homes along the border used by Hezbollah will be demolished, warning that any structure or road seen as a threat to Israeli forces will be destroyed immediately.
The overarching objective of the campaign in Lebanon is the disarmament of Hezbollah and the removal of the threat to the communities of the north through a combination of military and diplomatic measures. We are holding this briefing while the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, is deployed in the security zone in Lebanon up to the anti-tank line, at a depth of up to 10 kilometers from the coastline in the west to the approaches of Mount Hermon in the east. From this line, which our heroic soldiers captured. The Israel Defense Forces defend Israeli communities from any direct threat. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I instructed the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, to act with full force, both on the ground and in the air, including during the ceasefire, in order to protect our soldiers in Lebanon from any threat.
Staying in Lebanon, the human cost of the conflict is coming into a sharper focus as families begin returning to homes reduced to rubble. Despite a fragile ceasefire, uncertainty remains over whether the pause in fighting can hold.
60-year-old Zara Eid has returned to her home, which was destroyed by Israeli airstrikes, and faced the ruins. She stood among the rubble of her house in the southern Lebanese town of Ta'adeba. Eid said she fled on the first day of the war with her 3 daughters and later moved to the Jabil area. She returned on the second day of the ceasefire and tried to recover items from the rubble, including clothes, a laptop and a photograph of her late husband.
Of course, I was upset that my life's work was gone. I mean, all my life's hard work is now gone, and now I have to rebuild. I mean, the situation is different from before. I've had this for about 10 years. I have been living in this house for 10 to 11 years. It's not that old, but this room was old. I came and I cried a little, me and my daughters, and then we started taking out our things. I came from Tyre, I brought things for Ramadan, and I sat down and put them here on the table in the living room. Underneath this, pointing to ceiling, there was a table and sofas and stuff. I left them and went.
According to official figures, more than 2,000 people were killed in Lebanon during the war, and around 1.2 million were displaced from their homes. US President Donald Trump has said that the United States has ordered Israel to stop further strikes in Lebanon. The statement came a day after a 10-day ceasefire was announced.
One is always bothered by losing their memories. We have good memories here, memories that can't be forgotten. They can last a lifetime. Even if you rebuild 20 houses, the memories will stay in my head.
The agreement between Lebanon and Israel has raised hopes of easing tensions in the parallel US-Iran conflict. However, the deal leaves key questions unanswered. It does not include a requirement for Israeli forces to withdraw from southern Lebanon, while Israel says its military operations will continue.
Over to Gaza now, and living conditions in certain parts are deteriorating as displaced families face growing health risk in overcrowded camps. With waste building up and basic services stretched, concerns are rising over the potential for disease outbreaks. Here's more.
Families displaced in the Gaza Strip are struggling to survive in worsening conditions as piles of rubbish build up around makeshift camps. On Thursday in Deir al-Bala, children are seen picking through waste, often looking for food, and playing beside heaps of rubbish, with tents set up just meters away. A bulldozer moves waste nearby as families try to carry on with daily life in the middle of contaminated areas.
We came here just to gather what we could, go to the bakery to bake, and try to survive. But the rubbish around us is attracting insects and mosquitoes and affecting everyone, including displaced families. At night we cannot sleep because of the itching. The numbers are large. Most of us are displaced from northern Gaza, especially Beit Lahia. This rubbish dump is very close to the tents, full of mosquitoes and insects, and we spend the night scratching, especially the children. There is no proper healthcare or treatment. Because of the amount of waste, children search through the rubbish, find leftover food or items, eat them, then fall ill.
Officials warn that if the waste is not cleared, it could lead to disease outbreaks as insects spread and strong odors fill the area, with children being the most affected.
My daughter is ill. Her chest is burning with fever. It's been 4 days, from Friday until today, Thursday, and the temperature is still high. I took her to the clinic and she was given injections, but I don't know what is wrong with her or what caused it. It's all because we are living next to this rubbish dump. We are sitting right beside it, as you can see. I appeal to all Arab countries to help us, or at least move us away from here and provide us with a camp or somewhere to live. Tents, food, water, anything. I just hope everyone can help us.
residents are now calling for urgent international support, not only for food and water, but for safer living conditions and basic services.
Iran's missile program is emerging as one of the most resilient and extensive in the region, with capabilities designed for both reach and endurance. Even under sustained pressure, its scale and structure continue to pose a significant strategic challenge. Let's take a look at this report.
Iran has the largest ballistic missile stockpile in the Middle East, with systems designed to strike targets across the region, according to the US Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Tehran says it has kept a self-imposed range limit of 2,000 kilometers, enough to reach Israel, although some reported systems are listed at up to 2,500 kilometers. That capability rests on four main strengths: size, range, variety, and survivability. The Center for Strategic and International Studies says the arsenal includes a mix of short and medium-range missiles, including the Sejil, Imad, Ghadar, Shahab-3, Khorramshahr, and Khaybar. Over the years, Iran has worked to improve range, mobility, and deployment speed, while also developing missiles that are harder to detect and intercept. Iran has also tried to modernize the program. In 2023, it unveiled what it described as its first domestically developed Fateh hypersonic missile. A major part of Iran's missile capability is underground infrastructure, often referred to by Iranian officials and state media as missile cities. These are hardened bases built to protect missiles, launchers, and support systems from airstrikes. According to Alma Research and Education Center, one reported site near Shiraz was identified as one of 25 primary bases capable of launching medium-range ballistic missiles. That underground network helps explain why the missile program is so difficult to eliminate. Before the Iran-Israel conflict began on February 2026, estimates of Iran's missile stockpile range from about 2,500 to as many as 6,000, depending on the source. Even after weeks of strikes, assessments suggested only about a third of the arsenal had been confirmed destroyed, according to sources close to US intelligence. Another third was believed to be damaged or buried in underground bunkers, while the rest remained potentially active. Iran was also assessed to have retained at least 30% of its launch capacity. During the conflict, Israeli military officials reported that some Iranian missiles carried cluster warheads, creating an added challenge for air defenses because they need to be intercepted before they break apart. Together, those capabilities make Iran's missile program a force built not only for reach, but for survival, allowing it to remain a credible military tool even under sustained attack.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has met Argentina's President Javier Milei in Jerusalem. The two leaders signed cooperation deals and reaffirmed close political alignment amid rising regional tensions.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met Argentine President Javier Milei in Jerusalem, where the two leaders held talks, delivered statements and signed a series of cooperation agreements. The meeting highlighted deepening political alignment between the two countries, with discussions focusing on regional tensions as well as expanding bilateral ties. During a joint appearance, Netanyahu pointed to the broader regional context, stressing ongoing challenges linked to Iran.
We have been engaged with the United States in a battle against the great tyranny of Iran, which terrorizes the world, which seeks our destruction and seeks to bring down the United States, seeks to bring down Western civilization as we know it. We have achieved enormous things. It's not over yet. And any moment could bring us new developments.
Alongside security issues, the two sides signed cooperation agreements, including plans for a new direct flight route between Israel and Argentina, expected to launch later this year. Milei used the meeting to underline Argentina's political stance.
Argentina took clear initiatives consistent with the values that bring us together here today. We signed the Memorandum of Understanding for Democracy and Freedom between Argentina and Israel, and we designated Hamas, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, and the Lebanon, Egypt, and Jordan branches of the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations.
He also reiterated Argentina's support for the United States and Israel in what he described as a fight against terrorism and the Iranian regime, while reaffirming plans to move Argentina's embassy to Jerusalem when conditions allow. The visit marks Milei's third trip to Israel as president and comes ahead of his participation in events linked to Israel's Independence Day.
Now to North America, and 8 children have been killed and 2 other people injured in a shooting in the US state of Louisiana. Police say the suspect is also dead after a car chase. Here's the full report.
8 children aged between 1 and 14 have been killed and 2 other people injured in a shooting in Shreveport, Louisiana. Authorities say the incident began just after 6 a.m. on Sunday and stemmed from a domestic disturbance. Police say several of the victims were related to the suspect. Investigators say multiple crime scenes are being examined, including a home where the children were found and nearby locations linked to the incident.
The house behind us that you see, the gray house, is the house in which 7 children were located inside that were deceased. There was an additional deceased child that looked like he had tried to escape the residence out the back on the roof.
After the shooting, the suspect allegedly stole a vehicle and fled the scene. He was later fatally shot by police following a pursuit. The suspect has not yet been identified, pending notification of relatives. The investigation is ongoing.
Now to Europe, and the former president Rumen Radev's party is leading early results in Bulgaria's snap election, pointing to a possible political shift after years of instability and renewed turmoil in recent months.
Former President Rumen Radev's Progressive Bulgaria coalition is leading early results after Sunday's snap parliamentary election, according to the Central Election Commission. Exit polls put his Progressive Bulgaria on 37%, more than double the score of the closest runner-up, former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov's GERB, on 16%. The Bulgarians expressed hope for political change after years of deadlock.
Well, there is hope for a change in the situation we have seen so far, when despite choosing different parties, nothing in our society was really changing from a party political point of view. There is now an opportunity for the things people have been hoping to see, the change to actually become visible. Now, in the near future, with this choice.
The election was called after the previous government tried to push through a controversial budget last December, prompting mass demonstrations which Radev, as president, supported.
I am more or less surprised, yes, but it seems this is the will of the Bulgarian people. So now it remains to be seen if he will take a pro-Russian course or continue the pro-Western policy that, to some extent, has been followed up to now, even by previous government.
Radev, known for his pro-Russian stance and opposition to military support for Ukraine, resigned in January to run. During the campaign, he called for improving ties with Moscow and restoring Russian energy flows to Europe.
You should know that Bulgaria will pay efforts to continue its European path, but believe me, strong Bulgaria in strong Europe needs critical thinking, needs pragmatism, because Europe has fallen a victim to its own ambition to be a moral leader in a world without rules.
14 parties and 10 alliances are competing, with 121 seats needed in the 240-member parliament to form a government. Final election results are expected on Monday.
Thousands of people were evacuated from a northern suburb of Paris after a World War II bomb was discovered and later detonated. Residents in Colombia were ordered to leave their homes early on Sunday morning as bomb disposal teams carried out the operation. Officials later confirmed the operation was successfully completed and the evacuation order was lifted. No injuries were reported. Turning to North America, and a small plane crash has killed at least one person after landing in a yard of a home in Florida. Officials say the plane went down under unknown circumstances and have launched an investigation. Here's more.
At least one person has been killed after a small plane crashed between houses in Florida on Sunday. Officials say the crash ignited a fire at one of the properties, which sustained damage. Residents described a chaotic scene at the time of the incident.
I was laying in my bed, I had my headphones on, and then out of nowhere, it's like the entire house just shaked. And I just saw this big wave of orange coming through my bedroom window. And then my mom was screaming. You were saying it was the plane. I thought it was a lightning bolt that had hit the tree.
I heard metal against metal. I heard the plane coming in, and then of course I heard it crash, and then I saw all of the flames and everything. The flames were encroaching a little bit. I went out with my little fire extinguisher and got some of it that was coming on my porch.
The aircraft involved was a Cessna C402, which departed from Tampa North Aero Park with only the pilot on board, who was killed in the crash. Authorities say the twin-engine plane went down under what they described as unknown circumstances. An investigation has been launched and is being led by the National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration.
Turning to South Asia, and a fireworks factory explosion in southern India has killed 23 workers and injured several others, prompting condolences from officials and ongoing investigations. Officials fear the death toll is likely to increase. Here's more on the story.
On Sunday, a massive blaze broke out at a firecracker factory in India's southern Tamil Nadu state, killing at least 23 people and injuring 6 others. Of the 23 deaths, 19 bodies have been identified. 16 of them are women and 3 are men. The factory blast occurred when about 30 workers were engaged in routine manufacturing-related processes at the firecrackers unit. Employees reported that parts of the building also collapsed under the force of the blast. Officials said a second explosion took place during rescue operations, leaving around 13 people hospitalized. Authorities added that there are no serious injuries from the second incident. Rescuers are still operating at the site. Authorities are investigating the exact cause of the accident. Officials said the explosion ripped through the factory and completely damaged the facility. Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, in a social media post, extended his condolences to those who have lost their loved ones in the deeply distressing incident. Industrial accidents are common in India, often due to poor adherence to safety regulations and weak enforcement. Last month, another fire at a fireworks factory in western India killed 17 people.
Turning to Africa now, and crowds gathered in Angola on Sunday as Pope Leo XIV visited the sanctuary of Mama Maxima. He used the visit to call for unity, peace and more just society.
Pope Leo XIV on Sunday urged Angolans to overcome division and build a more just society, as tens of thousands gathered during a visit marked by both celebration and reflection. The Pope travelled to the sanctuary of Mama Maxima, one of the country's most important Catholic pilgrimage sites, where around 30,000 worshippers assembled to pray the Rosary. Situated along the Kwanza River, the shrine is widely regarded as a place of comfort and spiritual healing. Addressing the crowd in Portuguese, Leo described the sanctuary as a place that has sustained generations through joy and sorrow and great suffering, underscoring its enduring role in Angola's religious life.
For the Mother of Heaven entrusts a great project to you as well, to build a better, welcoming world, where there is no more war, injustice, poverty or dishonesty, and where the principles of the gospel increasingly inspire and shape hearts, structures and programs for the good of all.
Earlier, Leo celebrated Mass before roughly 100,000 people in Calamba, near the capital, Luanda. He described Angola as a beautiful yet wounded country, referencing its 27-year civil war, and called on citizens to move beyond past divisions. The visit to Angola marks the third leg of Pope Leo XIV's four-nation Africa tour, during which he has repeatedly called for peace, greater equality and global solidarity. The pontiff arrived in the Portuguese-speaking country on Saturday, after visits to Algeria and Cameroon. His tour will also include a stop in Equatorial Guinea.
Now let's turn to our top story this morning and the latest updates on US and Iran war. Following Iran's recent statement that the US had broken the ceasefire and a rejection to attend talks, where does this leave us and the rest of the world, especially with reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and an end to the fighting? Here to help me unpack this is Shiraz Mahmood Khan, research scholar at the Western Caspian University. Good morning.
Good morning.
My first question in all of this, just because things have moved quite rapidly, I mean, in the last 12 to 24 hours, because things have broken down quite quickly. Iran says it won't attend any talks that is brokered by Pakistan between itself and the US. And because of the blockade that the US has implemented there was a recent vessel from China going to one of Iran's ports that was blocked by the US. Iran is very upset about that. Where do we go from here if they're not going to come to the table to talk?
Things are changing rapidly on an hourly basis, and you know, the ceasefire. It's been quite a while that, you know, the ceasefire is happening. The ceasefire took place last week. The peace talk took place in Islamabad, and you know, they agreed on to have a peace for at least you know, some days. So tomorrow, day after tomorrow, the peace, you know, the ceasefire is exhausting. But the thing is that we have witnessed a lot of you know, you know, surge in, you know, against the you know, ceasefire and all that, from the US side as well and from the Iranian side as well. US has done the blockade in there, and Iranian has blocked the you know, Hormuz Strait from the other side, and they're not letting each other's shipping passing by. Recent was the French ship, which was blocked, and I think UK's as well, which is I don't know, against the thing. But what right now Iran wants at the moment is that the US should not really block the Strait of Hormuz from any side, and so is this you know, and US right now has not let the Iranian cargo go through the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't know, the tension is rising, but in Pakistan, people are really, you know, celebrating, and they're expecting them to come and have a peace talk, because Pakistan is really concerned as well. Pakistan has initiated this mediation talk, which is amazing, and which is acceptable by both of the parties as well. The Prime Minister of Pakistan has talked to the President of Iran a couple of hours back, and he's appreciated his concerns, and he's you know, the Chief of Military of Pakistan, Asim Munir, was there. The Chief of Defense Forces, now we call him, he's the Chief Field Marshal. And you know, he was there for talks, and Pakistani Prime Minister was there in Türkiye and UAE.
Yes, most recently. Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And just on that, as Pakistan steps in to be the key mediator between these two countries, obviously it's very fragile. You mentioned that the ceasefire will be coming to an end on Wednesday. Everybody wants a deal. Everybody wants this to end, especially the Gulf states that are feeling the impact, as well as those who rely on the Strait of Hormuz being open for oil and energy and things like that. But how can, and we know that also, that Pakistan has been drumming up support with Gulf nations. We've seen them going out to meetings with Gulf nations to find out exactly how things are going there. But what can Pakistan do in order to bring these two nations together, just because of what has recently happened in the Strait of Hormuz and what the US has done with blockading Iran's ports, and Iran is not happy about that? How can the two sides come together and at least talk about how to bring it to an end?
Well, what Pakistan is doing is that Pakistan is probably the only country in the region having a very good support from both sides. Pakistan maintains a very good long border with Iran and is a very, maintaining a military relations with Iran, as like the exercises have been, executed in Iran as well. The Pakistan, from Pakistani military side and strategic relations and long-term neighboring relations as well. Whereas Pakistan is the only non-NATO ally of US for quite a long time. So both, since 9/11 or maybe before that, when Afghan-Soviet war was happening. So US relies on Pakistan a lot in this part of the region, and so is Iran, and both of them, they rely and they trust Pakistan as the mediator. Well, that's one part of it. But the second part of it is that the Hormuz Strait, Pakistan can always, give them a platform to negotiate. Pakistan can always give them a security enough to let the ambassadors or not to let the representative of both the countries coming in Pakistan, because if you see the recent talks which took place last week, Pakistan military and Pakistan Air Force had to make a corridor till Iran and escort the Iranians to come to Pakistan and back as well. So it was only Pakistan military who could do that in the situation where the war was going on. So Pakistan has a lot of leverage as well. But what Pakistan can always give a platform, but I think China can mediate.
Okay, could be another
can be a guarantor, not a mediator, but can be a guarantor for certain things, because closing of Strait of Hormuz is really bad for Chinese export of oil and all that, and then obviously Chinese has a lot of stakes in this part of the region as Belt and Road Initiative. It is an initiative. It's a project which is spanning 100 and probably 50 countries, or 120, 150 countries. And Chinese have a lot of investment, around $1.3 trillion in different parts of the projects and all that. It's in infrastructures and all that.
Well, that leads, go ahead. I was going to say that leads on to my next question, really, just because of the attention that it's getting, especially with the Strait of Hormuz being closed and it impacting oil prices globally. We've already seen a dip this morning when it comes to the Asian markets that's just opened. And I want to find out, do you think, you mentioned China there, but are there any other countries, world leaders that could help to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, in this region, China is the is the bigger power, and China has its own potential, and it can do it as a guarantor, and Pakistan would act as the mediator, platform, and I think they both can talk to them, and I think the president of U.S. is expected to go to China.
Yes, he is soon. Yes,
and he needs to, give them a platform or give them a ground to talk on, and that would be if there is no problem in Strait of Hormuz, then they can further negotiate on different other things. But if there's a problem in this part of the region and this is stuck, I don't think so that President of U.S. has more to talk about it with China in the next coming visit of his.
And you meant, yes, sorry, I keep cutting you off, go ahead.
Yeah. So China would love to obviously keep the strait open, because it is just not China, it's the whole but there's a pressure from all European countries. I mean, all the world, all the global economics are disrupted, and the prices of if this continues, I mean, we have to, you know, for this next 24 hours is very critical, because we're expecting this thing in Islamabad. And Islamabad is all set, already all secured. All the hotels are vacated where this conference is supposed to take place. But this 24 hours are really critical, and obviously Islamabad would like to talk to the media, to talk to the actors who are coming, which is supposedly be, you know, Iranians. I think President Trump is sending he's
sending the delegation over there. Exactly. Yes. And sorry, just because I want to get in as many questions, otherwise we'll be here all day. So I want to just continue. Just on Pakistan and its hand in bringing these two nations together. We saw the first talks brought about a successful ceasefire. Obviously, it's very fragile, but a 2-week ceasefire, which the two have done. Why do you think, you mentioned previously before that Pakistan has great relations with Iran, with the US, bringing these two nations together, and Pakistan is really coming out as, you know, the key mediator between these two, and they've been planning, today is hopefully the second day of the talks. Why has Pakistan been able to be a key leader in mediating these talks between them?
Yeah, because I'll tell you, Pakistan, I told you that Pakistan is having a very good relations with the US, and US relies on Pakistan a lot. If you see, Trump is always admiring the Prime Minister of Pakistan and the chief of military of Pakistan, Asim Munir. So in almost in every speech, he's actually taking their names. So he has very good relations with Pakistani military and Pakistani civilian leadership, and he trusts, the chief of defense forces of Pakistan, and he tells him that, he considers him as one of the best military guys we have it right now in this, situation. Why? Because Pakistan has been, dominant in the region, because recently 2 wars between Pakistan and India took place, where Pakistan has, shot down 6 or 7 the jets of India. So Pakistan dominates this region, and Pakistan is considered as someone who is able to bring those two powers or the two actors on
together.
The table.
Yes, but
yes.
If things don't go well and the two do not come together, will that bode negatively on Pakistan? Will they still be seen to be the key leader in bringing them together, or will this actually have a negative impact on Pakistan mediating?
This would never have a negative impact. Why? Because Pakistan is the only country which is doing that right now. None of the other country does. Tried, but none of the other country is in a position to do that, which has very good terms with, all the actors, even including the Middle Eastern countries. So Pakistan and Middle Eastern countries have very good ties with Pakistan, not only country to country, but very good ties with the Prime Minister. The personal ties are there.
Yeah.
So Pakistan is if not Pakistan, I think none of the other countries would be able to do that. But it does not have any kind of a bad implication of that. Even if the talks fails, Pakistan is the one who tried their level best.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Khan, for talking to me this morning on this subject. It's been very beneficial. Thank you. Now over to a quick break. When I return, we'll take a look at the regional headlines. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, and thank you for joining me this morning. Now let's turn to the key stories across the region, and we head first over to what's going on in Iran. And a pro-government rally took place in Tehran, where participants voiced strong backing for the authorities and hardline positions on diplomacy. The gathering comes in the middle of rising regional tensions linked to the ongoing conflict and increased uncertainty across the Middle East.
Thousands gathered in Tehran on Sunday in a rally supporting the Iranian government, with many expressing strong skepticism toward the United States amid rising regional tensions. demonstrators waved Iranian flags and displayed images of political and religious figures while chanting slogans backing national unity and resistance. The protests came as officials rejected the possibility of renewed peace talks with Washington, citing shifting positions and what they described as unmet commitments. Several participants voiced deep mistrust of the United States, saying diplomacy was unlikely to succeed, and warning that pressure or military threats would not change Iran's position.
We are not afraid of war, even if not just one attack, but continuous attacks are carried out against our country. We will certainly move forward with greater strength and authority. But in my view, given the situation as it is developing, the United States and Israel have no option but to surrender to Iran's demands.
In my opinion, unless we show these people a very powerful display of force, this war will continue even if a peace agreement is registered at the United Nations or all countries come and provide guarantees, because the hatred they have toward us is not hatred born of disputes and such things, but a deep-rooted hatred.
The situation in the Middle East remains unstable amid ongoing tensions, with the war now in its 8th week marked by heavy casualties and widening regional spillover involving Iran, Israel and allied forces.
Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has said that they are ready to organise peace talks on Ukraine at the presidential level. Speaking at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum on Sunday, he warned that global attention shifting to other crises should not reduce focus on Ukraine.
Both our leadership and our president have consistently said that Türkiye is always ready to act as a host at all levels. We are also prepared to facilitate talks at the technical level. We have no difficulties in this regard. Just as we have done before, we are ready to do so again. We are also prepared to support all talks taking place elsewhere, as long as peace is achieved. Good does not have to come only through us. If it comes through others, it is still good and worthy of respect. We are ready to provide all kinds of support as long as peace is achieved.
Closer ties between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan are translating into stronger economic cooperation as trade between the two neighbours continue to grow. Our correspondent has more.
Trade turnover between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan has reached $1 billion, reflecting the steady strengthening of economic and political ties between the two neighboring countries. The figure was highlighted this week during talks in Istanbul between the Speaker of the Kyrgyz Parliament, Marlen Mamaliyev, and Tanzila Narbayeva, chairperson of the Senate of Uzbekistan. The sides noted that finalization of border demarcation has played a key role in boosting bilateral trade. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, sections of the Kyrgyz-Uzbek border remain disputed, particularly in the densely populated Fergana Valley. A breakthrough came after high-level negotiations between Sadir Japarov and Shavkat Mirziyoyev, leading to a comprehensive agreement finalizing 1,476 kilometers of the shared border by the end of 2022. The deal included land swaps, joint management of the Kempirabat Reservoir, and the resolution of disputed sections, significantly improving border stability. Further progress was made in March 2025 with a trilateral agreement in Khujand, which helped finalize remaining boundary points and strengthened regional cooperation. Economic cooperation has shown strong growth in recent years. Trade turnover stood at around $846 million in 2024 and reached $1 billion over the past year. This growth reflects expanding trade volumes, diversification of goods, and deeper industrial cooperation. In addition to trade, both sides highlighted growing cultural and humanitarian ties, including an increase in tourism and people-to-people exchange. Officials stressed that improved border stability alongside expanding business cooperation, joint industrial projects, and better transport connectivity is creating conditions for further growth in both bilateral trade and long-term regional integration. It is Sivil Rajab reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Now for a quick break. When I return, I'll have a full update on the latest headlines, plus a look at what's making the front pages this morning. Don't go anywhere. Hello, you're watching Daybreak live on A News, and if you're just joining me, I'm Nadia Gyane, the host here, taking you through the day's top stories. So let's take a look at the headlines. Ceasefire under pressure after Iran threatens to retaliate to US seizure of ship. Mass shooting in the US leaves 8 children dead and others wounded. And Bulgaria's former president on course to win its country's elections. Now let's take a closer look at the stories making the front pages this morning. We turn right to Reuters right now in regards to Bulgaria's pro-Russian former president, which you can just see here, making a speech. President set for landslide election win, exit poll shows. So we will be bringing you the latest update once we figure out what these final results bring. But former President Rumen Radev's Progressive Bulgaria Party is looking like it's likely to gain the massive election result. Now, it's the 8th general election in 5 years that Bulgaria have had, and the exit polls show that this Progressive Party is on 37%, more than double in the score of its closest runner-up, and former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov's GERB party on 16%. And just a reminder as to how these elections came about. The election was called after the previous government tried to push through a controversial budget last December, prompting mass demonstrations, and Radev has promised to build a strong Bulgaria in a strong Europe, and that's exactly what he was saying here. He wants to build a stronger Bulgaria and see Europe really rise up out of that. Now, he's seen as a pragmatic, somewhat pro-Russian leader. He's also criticised the EU sanctions and called for constructive dialogue when it comes to the Kremlin. Now, Bulgaria, for him, he opposes Bulgarian military support for Ukraine and says that it's something that he wants to focus in on. Now, his election campaign has largely been focused on domestic policies, promising to combat corruption in the country as well as restore stable government after years of weak and easily toppled coalitions, is what he has said. So we'll give you the update as soon as we get the final exit poll figures. Now let's move over to the next story making headlines, and that's on the BBC, and that's in relation to what happened in Malaysia. Now there's drone footage showing a huge fire that broke out on Sunday, as you can see here. Now it tore through the floating village in Malaysia, reducing more than 1,000 homes to ash and affected over 9,000 residents. Now flames raced through, as you can see, this tightly packed settlement here, and strong winds pushed the fire across more than 4 hectares of densely packed homes in the village in eastern Malaysia. Now there were 35 firefighters battled the blaze using water tankers. Now this area is in its coastal village where indigenous and undocumented people live in wooden stilt houses over the water there, and they are some of the poorest residents in Malaysia. Now the cause of the fire is still unknown, but an investigation has begun and is underway to find out exactly what triggered that. But as you can see from that drone footage, how quickly this blaze spread throughout this community here. Quite devastating, as we'll get more information as to that and the fatalities if there were any, but we do know 1,000 homes were impacted by that. Okay, now let's turn to our next story, which is on our A News website, and live coverage saying Iran accuses the US of ceasefire breach, vows retaliation after ship seized in the Gulf of Oman. And that's in regards to the main story taking place today. Now, the US said that it's actually sending a delegation to Pakistan on Monday for another possible round of talks aimed at ending the US-Israeli war in Iran. But comments on Sunday evening from Iranian state media said there were currently no plans to participate in the next round of talks. Iran has actually accused America of violating a fragile ceasefire between the two countries in regards to all that's been going on. But Trump announced on Sunday that an Iranian cargo ship that tried to get past the blockade, which the US has been there coming up to a week now, near the Strait of Hormuz, has been seized. Now, Iran's military has said that the ship had been traveling from China, and they also said that we warn that the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will respond and retaliate against this armed piracy by the US military. So that's currently what's going on. Whether or not these talks in Islamabad are going to happen is still to be TBC, but it looks like Iran is being quite firm in this and saying that it does not want to participate in ongoing talks when it comes to ending the war. It seems we know that the ceasefire is due to end on Wednesday, and is why Islamabad and Pakistan mediators are trying its best to make sure to bring these two countries together to sort out some form of agreement. But we go into more detail in regards to this in our next report, so let's take a look at that.
US military has taken control of an Iranian-flagged cargo ship after stopping it at sea. In a social media post, President Donald Trump said US forces disabled the vessel by blowing a hole in its engine room and now have full custody of the ship. The US Central Command later confirmed the operation and released video of the encounter. It said a US Navy destroyer, USS Spruance, intercepted the vessel, identified as the MV Tauska, in the North Arabian Sea. According to CENTCOM, the ship's crew failed to respond to repeated warnings over a 6-hour period. The destroyer then fired several rounds from its 5-inch deck gun into the vessel's engine room to stop it. US Marines later boarded the ship, which remains in American custody. Tracking data shows the ship had traveled from Port Klang in Malaysia and was heading toward the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas. The interception took place near key shipping lanes that connect to the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important routes for oil transport. The incident comes during a period of heightened tension in the region. The United States has maintained a blockade on Iranian ports, while Iran has at times restricted traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, diplomatic efforts appear to be faltering. The Islamic Republic news agency reports that Iran has rejected taking part in a second round of talks with the United States. The decision follows warnings from Washington that new strikes could be considered if a deal is not reached. President Trump said US representatives are expected to travel to Islamabad for proposed talks, describing the American offer as fair. However, Iran's refusal raises doubts about whether negotiations will move forward.
And that leads us to the question of the Strait of Hormuz and its closure, because oil prices have climbed sharply this morning on Asian trade markets because of the conflict. Brent crude, the global benchmark, jumped around 7% to $96.49 a barrel, rebounding from Friday's close, which had marked its lowest level since the 10th of March. US Texas Intermediate crude also climbed nearly 7% to $90.38 a barrel. Now, US forces have killed 3 men whom the military described as illicit drug smugglers in a strike on a boat in the Caribbean, US Southern Command said on Sunday. Now to North America, and 8 children have been killed and 2 others injured in a shooting in the US state of Louisiana. Police say the suspect is also dead after a car chase. Here's the full report.
8 children aged between 1 and 14 have been killed, and 2 other people injured in a shooting in Shreveport, Louisiana. Authorities say the incident began just after 6 a.m. on Sunday and stemmed from a domestic disturbance. Police say several of the victims were related to the suspect. Investigators say multiple crime scenes are being examined, including a home where the children were found and nearby locations linked to the incident.
The house behind us that you see, the gray house, is the house in which 7 children were located inside that were deceased. There was an additional deceased child that looked like he had tried to escape the residence out the back on the roof.
After the shooting, the suspect allegedly stole a vehicle and fled the scene. He was later fatally shot by police following a pursuit. The suspect has not yet been identified, pending notification of relatives. The investigation is ongoing.
Now to another story that we are also covering in regards to Europe, and the former president Roman Radev's party is leading early results in Bulgaria's snap election, pointing to a possible political shift after years of instability and renewed turmoil in recent months.
Former President Rumen Radev's Progressive Bulgaria coalition is leading early results after Sunday's snap parliamentary election, according to the Central Election Commission. Exit polls put his Progressive Bulgaria on 37%, more than double the score of the closest runner-up, former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov's GERB, on 16%. The Bulgarians expressed hope for political change after years of deadlock.
Well, there is hope for a change in the situation we have seen so far, when despite choosing different parties, nothing in our society was really changing from a party political point of view. There is now an opportunity for the things people have been hoping to see, the change to actually become visible. Now, in the near future, with this choice.
The election was called after the previous government tried to push through a controversial budget last December, prompting mass demonstrations which Radev, as president, supported.
I am more or less surprised, yes, but it seems this is the will of the Bulgarian people. So now it remains to be seen if he will take a pro-Russian course or continue the pro-Western policy that, to some extent, has been followed up to now, even by previous government.
Radev, known for his pro-Russian stance in opposition to military support for Ukraine, resigned in January to run. During the campaign, he called for improving ties with Moscow and restoring Russian energy flows to Europe.
You should know that Bulgaria will pay efforts to continue its European path, but believe me, strong Bulgaria in strong Europe needs critical thinking, needs pragmatism, because Europe has fallen a victim to its own ambition to be a moral leader in a world without rules.
14 parties and 10 alliances are competing, with 121 seats needed in the 240-member parliament to form a government. Final election results are expected on Monday.
Turning to Africa now, and crowds gathered in Angola on Sunday as Pope Leo XIV visited the sanctuary of Mama Muxima. He used the visit to call for unity, peace and a more just society.
Pope Leo XIV on Sunday urged Angolans to overcome division and build a more just society, as tens of thousands gathered during a visit marked by both celebration and reflection. The Pope travelled to the sanctuary of Mama Muxima, one of the country's most important Catholic pilgrimage sites, where around 30,000 worshippers assembled to pray the Rosary. Situated along the Kwanza River, the shrine is widely regarded as a place of comfort and spiritual healing. Addressing the crowd in Portuguese, Leo described the sanctuary as a place that has sustained generations through joy and sorrow and great suffering, underscoring its enduring role in Angola's religious life.
For the Mother of Heaven entrusts a great project to you as well, to build a better, welcoming world, where there is no more war, injustice, poverty or dishonesty, and where the principles of the gospel increasingly inspire and shape hearts, structures and programs for the good of all.
Earlier, Leo celebrated Mass before roughly 100,000 people in Calamba, near the capital Luanda. He described Angola as a beautiful yet wounded country, referencing its 27-year civil war, and called on citizens to move beyond past divisions. The visit to Angola marks the third leg of Pope Leo XIV's four-nation Africa tour, during which he has repeatedly called for peace, greater equality and global solidarity. The pontiff arrived in the Portuguese-speaking country on Saturday, after visits to Algeria and Cameroon. His tour will also include a stop in Equatorial Guinea.
Now let's turn to the region and the latest Antalya Diplomacy Forum demonstrated its growing relevance as a platform, bringing together global leaders and policymakers. The forum reflected an increasingly multipolar environment in which middle powers seek greater coordination in the middle of shifting global alignments. The visible unity of Azerbaijan, Türkiye and Pakistan also adds to a wider discussion on if there is early signs of a more coordinated trilateral strategy within an increasingly fragmented global order. Here to help me unpack this is Dr. Milei Demirtaş, political analyst and former diplomat, joining me from Ankara in Turkey. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ms. Nadia, for having me.
My first question in this is, obviously we've come out of this meeting, there's been a number of things discussed, but what are the concrete mechanisms could transform this trilateral unity into more results-orientated format?
Yes, the forum, first of all, really symbolized an important unity, as you said also in your coverage and introduction, as you indicated, in a very critical time, in a age of turmoil still continues. And Antalya, maybe an important gathering place, again showed, fifth time this year, showed that some different kinds of actors also come together. They can really come together because in such an atmosphere of crisis, think about, for example, Russian foreign minister, think about Ukrainian foreign minister, think about other sides. They really were present in Antalya in these last 2 days. And we also, of course, discussed, first of all, the issue, very important critical issue nowadays, of Iran. Pakistan's presence is so much important. Mr. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif's presence was so important. But of course, Saudi Arabia and Egypt also supported as maybe the other actors of this mechanism, as you mentioned. From the Turkic world, or brothers, of course, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, in the presidential level, they were also existent. And it is really utmost importance, really giving to this presence, I mean, from our brothers. But as you said, this crisis is still so tense, Ms. Nadia, because just during the forum, if you look at the news, in the first day, for example, Iran said the Strait of Hormuz is opened, and just, I think, 15, 16 hours, it's closed again. And meanwhile, Mr. Trump's, statements, and very bold statements, and which are also irritating, and which is also have some aggressive tones, it's also continued. Now, Islamabad really waits for another talk, and we hope that this ceasefire will continue, because as you know, this week, it is the last days of the ceasefire. And now another maybe term period will start with another ceasefire. And we hope that such a mechanism, I think, can be institutionalized also with the maybe participation of United States, first of all, but maybe also Russia or China can contribute from the outside. And such mechanism really can give the spirit of United Nations, maybe a small kind of United Nations. But of course, we still need the United Nations' real presence in such a complicated sense of conflict.
And just on that, I just want to quickly get in, because we're quite short for time. You mentioned a number of countries that were participating in these talks. Armenia also, unlike previous years, was actually not represented by its foreign minister, but by its deputy. Could that be interpreted as a sign of dissatisfaction, maybe, with the Turkish-Armenian normalization process? What are your thoughts on that?
We can say that the Caucasian part of the story is really going on in a very positive manner. If you look at these last year's developments, thanks to, of course, maybe diplomatic successes of Azerbaijani side, thanks to very positive signals from Armenian side, first of all, Mr. Pashinyan and his government bureaucrats, we can say that, yes, there could be some other maybe signals coming from maybe Russian inclined sectors, some other sectors which are prioritizing Chinese or United States relations, but still, the Caucasian spirit of diplomacy is going on, and we really hope that this part of story is a success story, especially compared to the other part of this region. I mean, think about Russia, Ukraine, think about Iran, Middle East, Israeli-led, especially aggressive policies. But now I think Caucasia succeeded in thinking that such forums, Antalya's forums also, can be concluded as a successful story of such a part of diplomacy.
And very quickly, my final question is, do you think that this displays the unity, a signal of a new phase of regional diplomacy shaping international discourse then?
Regional diplomacies rising, importance rising. Ms. Nadia, I think since 2000, in second half of 2010, we can say that regional actors are really aware of their importance, are really aware of the gravity of their power, especially vis-a-vis the rising aggressiveness of some powers, first of all, United States, also Russia. But we can say that, yes, regional diplomacy is rising, and it can shape the international politics more and more, I think, in the coming decades.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning, Mr. Demirtas, on your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching Daybreak with me, Nadia Gyane. Now let's turn to the world of tech. An artificial intelligence company, Anthropic, has announced a new model that it says can outperform humans at some hacking and cybersecurity tasks. A new startup company also looks at efficient ways to create vegan production lines, and a social media ban hits Greece. Here's Nathan Kamanga with more on our tech show, Switch.
You ever have that one friend who always thinks AI is getting too powerful? Well, they might just be onto something, and that's because AI company Anthropic has released their latest model called Claude Mythos Preview. Anthropic says it's so powerful that access to the model is only limited to a few companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft. Tests done using Mythos have shown it can independently discover and exploit serious software vulnerabilities. At this point, yes, it is helping where it matters, just hopefully not helping itself too much. Now, have you ever struggled with the idea of going fully vegan? Maybe because you just like the taste of actual meat. Well, so Spanish food tech startup Nova Meat might just help with that transition with its strategy to supply plant-based ingredients to meat processors. Their balanced protein product is designed to replace part of the beef in products such as burgers, meatballs, and ground beef, allowing manufacturers to lower the proportion of animal protein while using existing production lines. Nova Meat says its ingredient is already being tested with meat processors in Europe, ahead of a wider industrial rollout planned for later this year. Seems like the chopping block just got hotter, or maybe greener. And finally, Greece has announced plans to ban social media for under 15s. Officials say the move is aimed at tackling rising anxiety and sleep problems among young people. The major platforms targeted in the ban are Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Snapchat, making Greece the latest European country to restrict children's exposure to online platforms. Restrictions are set to come into force from January next year. Well, this brings us to the end of the show. And for those of you who still can, be sure to follow us on social media for more tech news.
Now to something a little bit more illuminating, and crowds have gathered in Mexico City for the Water Lantern Festival to reflect and connect. The celebration turns a quiet lakeside into a symbolic display of lights. Let's take a look.
Dozens of paper lanterns drifted across Lake Acitlalin in Mexico City as people gathered to mark a night of remembrance and reflection. Families and couples wrote messages and drew symbols on lanterns before placing them on the water, turning the lake into a field of light. For some, the moment carried personal meaning, offering a way to honor loved ones who have died.
We thought this was a beautiful moment, a beautiful opportunity to remember my father-in-law. This is a tribute to his life. He passed away not long ago, and we felt this was a meaningful way to come here and remember him, to remember his life with our lanterns.
Others focused on messages of hope and healing, using the lanterns as a way to express emotions and send symbolic wishes beyond the moment.
I am painting a feather. Feathers go wherever the wind carries them, and I want this message to travel all over the world, bringing peace from the heart, to heal sadness, heal tears, because there is a lot of that.
Participants say the gathering is also about connection.
It is a moment to connect with people, to believe more in yourself, and to see what can come from a marker and a lantern. You can create anything. It can be whatever you want to express here, some feeling. For me, what matters is being happy and continuing to believe in dreams, and having a goal you still want to achieve.
As the lanterns moved slowly across the water, the evening blended personal loss with a wider sense of hope.
They look lovely, my goodness. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I'll be back tomorrow to take you through the latest updates throughout the morning, but make sure you stay tuned to A News as we get more updates and important information throughout the day, making sure we find out whether or not these talks go ahead with Iran and the US. Don't go anywhere.